If you think you know Scott Steiner, think again. Scott Steiner may be a wrestling legend, but his reputation is far from squeaky clean. Today, we're exposing the dark side of Big Papa Pump and the controversies that have haunted his career. Scott Rex Steiner, who you might know better as Scott Steiner, was born on July 29, 1962. He's a big name in American professional wrestling. Scott really shone in World Championship Wrestling, but didn't stop there. He's wrestled for all sorts of groups like Jim Crockett Promotions, what's now WWE Impact Wrestling, and even Extreme Championship Wrestling. He's picked up 4 world championships along the way, including titles in WCW and WWA. Back in the 80s and 90s, he teamed up with his older brother Rick to form the Steiner Brothers. They were pretty successful, snagging tag team titles in several major wrestling organizations. Scott's been a headline act in many major wrestling events, including WCW and WWE's Survivor Series in 1993. But this legend lived a life so controversial and dark that it will absolutely blow your mind. Back in April 1998, Scott Steiner, a big name in professional wrestling, found himself in quite a bit of trouble in Cherokee County, Georgia. The whole mess started when he was told by a Department of Transportation worker that an interstate exit ramp was closed. Steiner, known for his quick temper, didn't take this news well at all. In a moment of rage, he hit the worker with his pickup truck, not just once, but twice, seriously injuring the guy. The serious outburst got Steiner arrested, and he faced some pretty heavy charges. He was slapped with aggravated assault and making terroristic threats, both of which are felonies that could have sent him to prison for up to 30 years. In the end, Steiner pleaded guilty to these charges, which probably saved him from a longer, more complicated court battle, but it certainly didn't help his reputation. But this wasn't just a one-off. Steiner's aggressive behavior seemed to be a recurring theme. For instance, during his days at World Championship Wrestling, Steiner and another wrestler, Buff Bagwell, had a serious backstage fight. It started with some harsh words and escalated quickly to physical blows. Steiner ended up hurting Bagwell pretty badly. This fight just added more tension to an already charged atmosphere backstage. Steiner's behavior towards women has also raised eyebrows. He's been accused several times of making really inappropriate and offensive remarks to female wrestlers and fans. These comments range from being just plain rude to downright sexually suggestive, creating a very uncomfortable vibe for those around him. His aggressive streak didn't mellow even after his wrestling days were over. After leaving Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, he blamed them for the company's struggles and didn't shy away from making threats against them on social media, saying he'd get physical if they ever crossed paths. These comments were not only aggressive, but pretty alarming, considering they could incite actual violence. Steiner claimed it was all a big misunderstanding, but by then the damage to his public image was already pretty extensive. Through all these incidents, it's clear that Scott Steiner's career has been as marked by controversy and aggression as it has by his achievements in the ring. His tendency to fly off the handle not only messed up a lot of his professional relationships, but also left a lasting impact on how people see him. It's a bit of a mixed legacy, really, impressive in the ring, but definitely complicated outside of it. Although you can't deny his shady record, it's fair to say that career is worth remembering. So let's get into it. But before that, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. Scott Steiner really carved out a name for himself in the wrestling world. Born in Bay City, Michigan on July 29, 1962, he first hit the mats in college wrestling at the University of Michigan. Competing at 156 pounds, Scott quickly showcased his potential, eventually clinching All-American status. He debuted in Indianapolis in 1986 and quickly made a splash by winning the WWA World Heavyweight Championship. That win was just the start of an exciting career. In his early years, Scott formed dynamic tag teams with various partners, snagging multiple championships. He later joined the Memphis-based Continental Wrestling Association, continuing to dominate the tag team scene with wrestlers like Billy Joe Travis and Jed Grundy. 1989 was a big year for Scott as he stepped into World Championship Wrestling, WCW, and took on the ring name Scott Steiner. He dove right into high-stakes matches, often teaming with his brother Rick. The Steiner brothers, as they became known, were instant fan favorites, notorious for their thrilling matches and dramatic storytelling. They even had their pit bull Arnold and manager Missy Hyatt by their side, adding to their unique ring presence. Scott wasn't just a tag team wrestler. He also shined in singles competitions. He completed the NWA WCW Gauntlet Series in 1990 and vied for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship in 1991. Despite facing challenges like his brother's injury, Scott kept proving his mettle in the ring. The Steiner brothers eventually moved to the World Wrestling Federation in 1992, continuing their streak of victories and engaging in feuds with top tag teams. Their performances at events like WrestleMania and Royal Rumble were memorable, to say the least. But their time in WF was just a chapter in their storied careers as they returned to Japan in WCW. That's where Scott transformed into Big Papa Pump, a bolder and brasher character that really stood out. Joining the infamous New World Order faction, Scott took on a villain role, which included betraying his brother. This new persona wasn't just about his in-ring skills. His unique promos, often filled with humor and bravado, became iconic. Scott's wrestling journey didn't end in WCW. He made his way to Extreme Championship Wrestling and Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, maintaining his high-level performance. In TNA, he was involved in a slew of storylines, forming alliances and rivalries that kept fans glued to their screens. Even later in his career, Scott made appearances in various wrestling promotions, including a return to TNA and stints in the National Wrestling Alliance. His contributions to wrestling have left an indelible mark on the sport, celebrated for his athleticism, charisma, and truly unforgettable character. Scott Steiner's career in wrestling is a tale of legendary feats inside the ring and controversial moments outside of it. His journey from a college wrestling champion to a pro wrestling icon as Big Papa Pump is filled with impressive victories and memorable storylines. However, his path was also marred by moments of aggression and inappropriate behavior that cannot be overlooked. Steiner's achievements, such as becoming a four-time world champion and winning numerous tag team titles with his brother, highlight his skill and dedication to wrestling. Yet, his quick temper and public disputes have often overshadowed these accomplishments, leading to a complex legacy that blends awe with astonishment. Despite the mixed reactions he may evoke, Scott Steiner remains a significant figure in the wrestling world. His name synonymous with both excellence and excess. His story serves as a reminder of the pressures and pitfalls that come with fame in high-stakes environments, like professional wrestling. So, what do you think about Scott Steiner's colorful and tumultuous career? Is he a wrestling legend, a cautionary tale, or perhaps a bit of both? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you found it intriguing and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the lives of wrestling's most compelling figures. Thanks for watching. Also, if you like this video, make sure to check our latest one on Andre the Giant. I'm sure you'll love it.
I said, dude, do you realize what happened tonight? I said, the perception that two guys from the WWE jumped ship and are going to take over your company, the people believe that. They think two guys can beat 100. I said, no, you're not going to put them out of business.
Kevin Nash is a wrestling legend, with multiple championship reigns and a Hall of Fame induction under his belt. However, his career was also marked by questionable choices and controversial actions. Let's take a closer look at the man behind the legend and the scandals that followed him. Kevin Nash, born on July 9, 1959, is a real icon in professional wrestling. Even though he's retired, he's still pretty active under a Legends contract with WWE. His career stretches beyond WWE, though, having been a big part of both World Championship Wrestling and Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Back in the day, Kevin first made a splash in wrestling with WCW in the early 90s, where he wrestled under a bunch of different names until 1993. As Diesel, he really hit the big time, nabbing titles like the WWF World, Intercontinental, and Tag Team Championships. His 358-day run as WWF champion was the longest of that decade. He was also part of The Clique, a behind-the-scenes group that included other wrestling stars like Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Later, Kevin spent 7 years at TNA, picking up their Legends and Tag Team Championships. In 2011, he came back to WWE under a Legends contract and still pops up now and then. Over his career, he's won a whopping 20 major championships, including 6 World Championships and 12 World Tag Team Championships. He's also a two-time WWE Hall of Famer, inducted both individually and as part of the NWO. Plus, he's headlined tons of major pay-per-view events, including WWCW's Starrcade, where he famously ended Bill Goldberg's undefeated streak of 173 wins in 1998. What a legend, huh? But beyond these achievements, there is a man who is filled with controversies and legal battles that will make anyone cringe. Let's get into them in detail, but before that, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. Let's start with the first one. On December 24, 2014, a big family argument happened at Kevin Nash's house in Volusia County, Florida. Things got pretty heated between Nash and his 18-year-old son, Tristan, and even Nash's wife got involved. Both Kevin and his son had been drinking, which probably didn't help the situation. They started off just arguing verbally, but then it turned physical. Kevin said that Tristan was the one who started it. He claimed Tristan got really aggressive, even spitting in his face, which led him to physically hold his son down. On the other hand, Tristan said it was his dad who kicked things off, accusing him of being too harsh about his girlfriend, and then turning it into a physical fight. Tristan even said his dad used one of his wrestling moves, the choke slam, on him. Both father and son ended up getting arrested and charged with battery. Kevin also faced charges for allegedly abusing his wife during the same incident. But later, all the charges were dropped because there wasn't enough proof, and the stories from everyone involved were mixed up. Even though the charges were cleared, this incident really put Kevin Nash in a bad light. It brought up a lot of concerns about how he handles things in his personal life, especially the claim that he used wrestling moves during the fight. The whole mess showed how drinking can make family problems even worse, and how complicated relationships within a family can get. Not only this, Nash is quite the character on social media, especially on Twitter, where he's known for stirring the pot. He doesn't shy away from joking about serious topics, like mental health issues, including depression and anxiety. A lot of people feel that these subjects should be handled more sensitively, and not as fodder for jokes, which puts Nash in the hot seat more often than not. I bet his language on Twitter is another thing that gets people talking. Nash uses quite a bit of profanity and some derogatory terms that many find offensive and think are not suitable for someone in his position. While he might be trying to be funny or make a strong point, it tends to rub a lot of his followers the wrong way. Apart from the edgy jokes, Nash doesn't hold back on sharing his opinions on politics and other big issues either. His tweets can kick off some serious debates and draw quite a bit of criticism from those who don't see eye to eye with him. It's not just fans who react. Fellow wrestlers and the general public also chime in, often saying his views are a bit outdated. Kevin's also been really open about his own struggles, particularly with substance abuse.
I probably started drinking when I was 13. I don't know, something like that. I was smoking little pinners and shit back then, and we both had decided that we were going to stop drinking.
He's talked about how alcohol and painkillers once had a big hold on his life, messing with everything from his personal relationships to his wrestling career. He turned to these substances mainly to deal with the physical pain that came with his wrestling stunts and lifestyle. Nowadays, he says he's made some major changes, seeking help and adjusting his lifestyle to overcome these challenges. People react differently to his honesty about these personal battles. Some applaud him for being upfront and see it as a sign of bravery. Others think he's just using his past to excuse some of his controversial actions and statements. This mix of blunt social media presence and a history of personal issues gives us a Kevin Nash who's both admired and criticized. He's definitely made a mark in wrestling, but his personal life and the way he handles himself online have sparked a lot of debate and controversy too. Fun fact for y'all, Nash's podcast, Click This, has often been a breeding ground for controversy. Due to his outspoken nature and occasionally insensitive remarks, he has been accused of being out of touch with the current wrestling landscape and making offensive comments towards certain groups. Another one of his controversies is, during his wrestling career, Nash participated in several controversial in-ring incidents, such as the infamous finger poke of doom and the curtain call. These events were seen as breaking kayfabe, the illusion of real competition in professional wrestling, and damaging the industry's credibility. These two incidents, the finger poke of doom and the curtain call, had far-reaching consequences for Kevin Nash's career and the wrestling industry as a whole. They solidified his reputation as a controversial figure, willing to push boundaries and challenge conventions. And last but not least, in a recent episode of his podcast, Click This, Kevin Nash shared some pretty bold opinions about the Vince McMahon controversy. Nash made it clear that if he were the one dealing with a 77-year-old man accused of such actions, he wouldn't be looking for a payout. He'd want the guy facing criminal charges. Kevin threw out the idea that maybe the lawsuits against Vince McMahon are more about money than justice. He pointed out that McMahon had cashed out a big chunk of stock recently, and maybe people are just trying to get a piece of that. He also brought up that the authorities and the company's board had looked into things, and they ended up bringing McMahon back. So Kevin seems to think that maybe the allegations weren't as serious as people are making them out to be. Nash didn't shy away from talking about the topic of grooming either. He questioned how one of the alleged victims couldn't just walk away from the situation, which got some people upset because it kind of downplays how complex and manipulative grooming can be. He also made a pretty harsh comment about the victim's lawyer, saying she looks like someone who got her law degree from an online university and doesn't really understand grooming. On the topic of relationships and NDAs, Nash mentioned that it's possible there were consensual relationships involved and that the woman, like others, signed NDAs. He sees this as a pattern of maybe cheating, not abuse. Nash admitted he hadn't read all the documents related to the lawsuit. He mentioned that his buddy Paul checked out the documents and briefed him. Even without diving deep into the material himself, Nash seemed pretty set in his views based on what he heard from his friend. When it comes to how much media attention the lawsuit is getting, Nash said he hasn't seen much in mainstream news, just bits and pieces here and there. He also wasn't impressed with the lawsuit documents he glanced at, calling them poorly written and questioning the competence of those who put them together. Wrapping up his thoughts, Nash stood by Vince McMahon, suggesting that the allegations might be blown out of proportion or even made up. But no one is unaware of the shady side of Vince McMahon. People are furious at Nash for his insensitive remarks, and this controversy really did make him trend on Twitter, of course, not for all the right reasons. Sure, his life was full of controversies and legal battles, but you can't rob him of his legendary career. To give his legacy a tribute here is a short documentary from his early career and his latest wins. Nash was born on a warm summer day on July 9, 1959, in a cozy neighborhood in southwest Detroit, Michigan. Growing up in a devout Christian family, he faced some tough times early on. His dad, Robert, passed away from a heart attack when Nash was just 8 years old, a loss that deeply affected him. Then, years later in 1994, his mom, Wanda, lost her battle with breast cancer, leaving Nash to navigate his future on his own. During his school days, Nash attended Aquinas High School before heading off to the University of Tennessee. There, he majored in psychology and minored in educational philosophy. Besides hitting the books, he was pretty big on basketball and played as a center for the Tennessee Volunteers. His time on the team was exciting. They even made it to the NCAA Sweet 16. But not everything was smooth. After some disagreements with the coach and a few campus incidents, Nash decided to skip his 4th year of college basketball. Looking for a fresh start, Nash packed up and moved to Europe to play basketball professionally. Unfortunately, just a year into his career, he suffered a major knee injury while playing in Germany, which ended his basketball dreams. Not one to sit still, Nash then joined the U.S. Army, where he served for 2 years in a secure NATO facility in West Germany. After his stint in the military, Nash returned to the States and took a couple of odd jobs. He worked at Ford Motor Company and even managed a strip club in Atlanta. But it wasn't long before he stumbled into the world of professional wrestling. In 1990, he debuted in World Championship Wrestling as Steel, sporting an eye-catching orange mohawk. He was part of the tag team Master Blasters. They had a great run at first, going undefeated for a while and even challenging for the NWA United States Tag Team Championship. From there, Nash's wrestling career had its ups and downs. But those early days were just the start of something big. Who knew the kid from Detroit would end up in the wrestling ring, right? Nash's wrestling persona underwent its first major change in WCW, where he debuted as Oz, a character inspired by the Wizard of Oz. This gimmick was short-lived, as Nash's portrayal didn't resonate well with audiences, and the character quickly faded after a series of initial wins. The lack of enthusiasm for the character and contractual disagreements over pay led to the gimmick's demise. Then came Vinny Vegas, a smooth-talking pseudo-mobster. This character had a bit more spice, drawing on vibes from Steve Martin's role in My Blue Heaven. Nash got to show off his charismatic side, cracking jokes and oozing that gangster charm. Although this gimmick was more successful than Oz, it still wasn't the breakout role Nash needed. Everything changed when Nash moved to the WWF and transformed into Diesel, a tough, no-nonsense bodyguard for Shawn Michaels. This was the big break Nash needed. Diesel was cool and intimidating, a perfect fit for Nash's towering frame and natural charisma. He quickly climbed the ranks, capturing the Intercontinental and then the WWF Championship. Fans loved the Big Daddy Cool vibe, and Nash became a main event star. The plot thickens when Nash returned to WCW in 1996 with Scott Hall to kick off one of wrestling's most famous angles, the formation of the New World Order. This was a game changer. The NWO storyline, with its rebellious anti-hero flair, was revolutionary and helped WCW trounce WWF in the ratings for a good while. Nash, with his cool demeanor and sharp wit, was a cornerstone of the NWO's success. Later, as WCW's ship began to sink, Nash even dabbled in some behind-the-scenes work, taking a swing at booking. His booking tenure was a mixed bag, with some fans appreciating the shakeups and others criticizing him for making moves that seemed to benefit his own status at the expense of other talent. Post-WCW, Nash found his way back to WWE for the odd nostalgia run and participated in key storylines like the NWO reunion. His later years were speckled with appearances, reflecting his transition from full-time wrestler to a seasoned veteran, sharing his wisdom and occasionally stepping into the ring for a special bout. Nash also made significant contributions to TNA, showing the ropes to younger wrestlers and injecting his insights into their development. His time in TNA highlighted not just his physical presence, but also his deep understanding of the wrestling narrative. Even after hanging up his boots, Nash hasn't completely left the wrestling scene. He's often at conventions and events, engaging with fans and discussing the business side of wrestling, which he knows inside out. Kevin Nash's legacy is more than just the titles he won. It's about his ability to evolve with the industry and maintain a strong connection with wrestling fans across generations. He's a perfect example of how adapting and reinventing oneself can sustain a lengthy and successful career in the spotlight. Speaking of his personal life, Nash and his wife, Tamara, have had quite the journey together. They got married in 1988, but hit a rough patch and separated in 2000. Eventually, they found their way back to each other. They have a son, Tristan, who was born in 1996 and grew up to be a musician and poet. Tragically, Tristan passed away in 2022 from complications related to alcohol withdrawal at just 26 years old.
At the beginning of the year, he was hospitalized for almost 60 days. It's alcoholism. It took one of my dearest friends, a gentleman named Ben Ciance, May a year ago. It took Scott, and now it's taken my son.
Nash has some Native American roots, something he's quite proud of. In 2016, he made a big decision to donate his brain to science to help research on brain injuries, specifically CTE, which is often found in athletes with repeated head trauma. Politically, Nash leans towards the center as a Democrat and has been pretty active in supporting various causes, including the rights of gay wrestlers. He also backed Kamala Harris in her run for president in 2024. On the legal front, Nash has had a couple of incidents. Once in 2011, he got into a scuffle with a drunk guy who was bothering his wife in a parking lot. Nash was arrested but later cleared when it turned out he was just defending Tamara. Then in 2014, things got really messy when he had a fight with his son, Tristan, on Christmas Eve, which ended with both father and son getting arrested. The charges against Nash were eventually dropped, and it was chalked up to him trying to protect his wife. Nash's wrestling career had its highs and lows. Despite being a big name, he didn't draw huge crowds as WWF champion, which he blames on the overall decline of wrestling popularity back then due to a steroid scandal. His shift to WCW with Scott Hall made waves, leading to big changes like guaranteed contracts to keep wrestlers from jumping ship. which really shook up the salary structure in wrestling. Aside from wrestling, Nash has dipped his toes in acting and other creative endeavors. He kicked off his acting careers with a bang as Super Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. He's popped up in various films and TV shows since, including a memorable role in The Punisher, where he actually got stabbed by accident during a fight scene. Nash even created a comic book where he stars as the hero in a dystopian future. Kevin Nash is a real giant in the wrestling world, not just in size, but in his influence too. His career is decked out with major wins and big-time titles, making him a legend in the ring. But it's not all shiny championship belts. Nash's story also has its fair share of rough spots, especially when it comes to his life outside the wrestling spotlight. Nash's personal life has been as tumultuous as his in-ring persona. Incidents like the violent Christmas Eve altercation with his son in 2014 and his unapologetically provocative social media presence have sparked widespread criticism. Despite these controversies, Nash has also shown a willingness to confront his demons, speaking openly about his struggles with substance abuse and his efforts to overcome them. His commitment to donating his brain for CTE research further illustrates a side of Nash that cares deeply about the future of his fellow athletes. Nash's story is a wild mix of triumphs, setbacks, and never-is-everything in between. He shaped the wrestling world in ways that few others have, managing to stay relevant even after hanging up his wrestling boots. Whether you love him or have your reservations, Nash's impact on wrestling is undeniable. If you found this look into Kevin Nash's life interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more wrestling content. Drop a comment too. What's your take on Nash's legacy? Keep the conversation going, and don't miss out on more stories from the wrestling world. Catch you in the next video. Miss Elizabeth steroids and missed chances at the top. Lex Luger's career had it all. He was on top of the wrestling world, had the body, the looks, and the talent, but it wasn't enough. From championship wins to personal struggles, here's the real story behind this wrestling persona. Lex Luger, born Lawrence Wendell Fole on June 2, 1958, is quite the legend in the wrestling world. Before he was throwing opponents around in the ring, he was building muscles as a bodybuilder and even tried his hand at football. He's best known for his time with big wrestling outfits like the World Championship Wrestling and what we now know as WWE. Lex had a pretty impressive run in WCW, where he snagged the World Heavyweight Championship not once, but twice. He even picked up the WWA World Heavyweight Championship along the way. Over at WCW and its earlier version, the NWA, he was the United States Heavyweight Champion 5 times, holding on to that title longer than anyone else at the time. He also nailed the WCW Triple Crown Champion title, making him a standout in the sport. While Lex never clinched a championship in the WWE, he was always in the thick of it, battling for every major title. He was so close to winning the WWF World Heavyweight Championship at big events like SummerSlam in 1993 and WrestleMania X in 1994. Plus, he was one half of the Royal Rumble co-winners in 1994, alongside Bret Hart. Fans were so into Lex that in 1993 they voted him the most popular wrestler of the year. But this legend was never free from controversies. Right from the get-go, his image was scarred. Don't believe us? Well, see for yourself. But before we dissect his crimes and escalating controversies, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. And number 1 is the infamous domestic violence case of Luger's then-girlfriend. Back in April 2003, a serious situation unfolded. At wrestler Lex Luger's home, he and his girlfriend, Miss Elizabeth, got into a big fight, which led someone to call the police to their townhouse. When the officers arrived, they found Elizabeth with some pretty bad injuries, bruises on her face, a cut lip, and a bump on her head. Seeing this, they arrested Luger and charged him with misdemeanor battery. This arrest really shook up the public. Domestic violence is a big deal, and seeing someone as famous as Luger involved in it caused a lot of anger and disappointment among his fans and the general public. His reputation, which wasn't great to begin with, took another serious hit. Luger managed to post bond and get out of jail, but he still had to face the consequences of his actions. This incident was just one part of a bunch of legal problems he was dealing with at the time, showing that things were really not going well for him personally. People often said that Luger's lack of charisma and not being great on the mic were big reasons he didn't make it to the top. Even though he looked the part and could handle himself in the ring, he didn't really connect with the audience on a deeper level, which is super important if you're going to be a leading star in wrestling. He faced off against big names like Ric Flair and even joined the notorious wrestling group, the Four Horsemen. Wrestling under the National Wrestling Alliance, Luger was known for his finishing move, the human torture rack, an excruciating backbreaker that helped him clinch many matches. Despite his rough and tumble persona in the ring, Luger's career was a series of highs and almosts. In early 1995, Lex Luger rocked the Royal Rumble. He was on fire, tossing out big names like Mabel and Bob Backlund, and got pretty close to the final victory. But, as luck would have it, Shawn Michaels had other plans and shoved Luger out of the ring when he least expected it. Not long after that, Luger paired up with Davey Boy Smith to form the Allied Powers. They kicked things off with a bang at WrestleMania's in Mean, grabbing a win that set the stage for more. They seemed unstoppable on Raw, paving their way to a shot at the WWF Tag Team Championship. Sadly, they couldn't clinch the title, and soon after, Luger dipped out of WWF. By late August '95, Luger was itching for a change and ended up reconnecting with his old pal Sting. This chat led to a surprising offer from WCW's Eric Bischoff, who wasn't exactly Luger's biggest fan. Bischoff lowballed him, thinking Luger would reject it, but Luger took the deal, shocking everyone by showing up on WCW's Nitro out of the blue. Once back at WCW, Luger kept everyone guessing. He hinted at going after Hulk Hogan's title, but stayed pretty mysterious, aligning himself with neither heroes nor villains for a while. But at Halloween Havoc, he made a bold move by attacking Hogan after his match, joining the notorious Dungeon of Doom gang. During the mid-90s, Luger found himself in the thick of major clashes. He got into a mix of championship tussles and tag team glories, often finding his loyalty tested due to his Dungeon of Doom ties. His wrestling saga reached new heights as he and Sting snagged the World Tag Team Championship. The saga with the New World Order was another major chapter for Luger. He stood firm against the invasion led by former WWF stars Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Despite a kayfabe injury during a key battle, Luger remained a pivotal fighter in WCW's stand against the NWO, even grabbing and losing the World Tag Team Championship along the way. Luger's story wasn't just about wrestling. He ventured into complex alliances, like joining the NWO Wolfpack and convincing Sting to come along. Despite his alliances, he kept clinching titles, like his 5th United States Heavyweight Championship in 1998, though his triumphs were often short-lived. After WCW, Luger popped up here and there in the wrestling world, joining tours and helping Sting win a championship in 1999. Later on, he contributed behind the scenes to WWE's wellness policy, advising younger wrestlers and helping them steer clear of the pitfalls that troubled past generations. Now coming to his personal battles, in October 2007, wrestler Lex Luger hit a rough patch when a neck injury left him temporarily paralyzed. There were whispers he might recover with antibiotics, but no official word came through. A month later, things looked pretty bleak, as he was still unable to move his arms or legs. However, by mid-2008, Luger began showing signs of improvement. He could stand by himself for a bit and even walk with a walker. By 2010, he told interviewers he was walking comfortably and had started driving again. Over the years, his ability to move around fluctuated. By 2014, he was using a wheelchair most of the time, though he could still manage a few steps on his own. But by 2021, he needed his wheelchair full-time to get around. Luger's life took a spiritual turn in September 2006 when he appeared on the TV show Praise the Lord. There, in a deeply personal chat with Stein, his old wrestling buddy, he opened up about his challenging times, especially after Miss Elizabeth's death. He revealed how becoming a born-again Christian, thanks to Pastor Steve Baskin, really helped him pull through his darkest days. Lex Luger's story really is something out of a movie, isn't it? From gridiron glory attempts to dominating the wrestling ring, his journey was packed with action, drama, and a dash of controversy. Whether it was clinching titles in WCW or stirring up the wrestling world, with his moves to WWF, Lex knew how to keep the spotlight shining bright. Lex Luger's life reminds us of the roller coaster ride that fame can be. It's filled with soaring highs and sobering lows, but through it all, Lex's resilience shines through, giving us a story that's not only about a wrestling legend, but also about personal redemption. What do you think about Lex Luger's journey? Drop a comment below to share your thoughts. And if you're digging these deep dives into wrestling legends, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Who knows? Your favorite wrestler might just be next on our list.
We all know Randy Orton for his signature move, the RKO, but what happens when the cameras stop rolling? Randy Orton may be a wrestling legend, but his real-life controversies are just as intense as his on-screen persona. Let's dive into the lesser-known side of the legend killer. Randy Orton, born on April 1st, 1980, is a star in American professional wrestling. Orton began wrestling in local circuits before joining WWE, where he first shone in Ohio Valley Wrestling, winning the Hardcore Championship twice. He quickly made a name for himself by winning the Intercontinental Championship and earning the nickname The Legend Killer after feuding with WWE legends. At 24, Orton became the youngest world champion in WWE history by winning the World Heavyweight Championship. This victory sparked a feud with his former group, Evolution. He later formed Rated RKO with Edge, winning the World Tag Team Championship. He continued to rack up titles, including 2 WWE Championships in one night at the age of 27. Orton has been involved in several significant storylines, including leading the Legacy and aligning with the Authority. In 2018, he won the United States Championship, completing his Grand Slam. He's also had a long-standing rivalry with John Cena, contributing to some of WWE's most memorable moments. Orton is a 10-time WWE champion, a 4-time World Heavyweight champion, and a 2-time Royal Rumble winner. He's headlined major events, including WrestleMania, and set records for the most WWE pay-per-view matches. But every coin has two sides, right? While he is undoubtedly a class wrestler, you can't ignore that he's had his fair share of troubles. Back in March 2007, Sports Illustrated revealed a big story about some professional athletes using steroids and growth hormones. Among those mentioned were several WWE wrestlers, including Randy Orton. They said Orton had gotten his hands on a bunch of different steroids and other related drugs. When this news broke out, WWE responded by saying that these events happened before they started their talent wellness program in February 2006. Then in August 2018, Orton was in the news again. This time it was claimed he had exposed himself to new writers at WWE during his early career. However, after an investigation, nothing much came out of these accusations. That same year, Orton faced another problem, this time about his tattoos. His tattoo artist, Catherine Alexander, sued the makers of the WWE 2K video games. She argued that they used her tattoo designs on Orton's video game character without her permission, which she said broke her copyright. The game makers said they had the right to use the designs. They called it fair use. But the court initially sided with Alexander. They left the fair use defense to be sorted out at trial. The trial was meant to happen in September 2021, but got delayed to October 2022 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Eventually, the judge decided in favor of Alexander and awarded her $3,750 for the infringement. Away from the ring, Randy's life has been a bit rocky at times. He got suspended from WWE once for not sticking to their wellness policy. And before his wrestling days, he was in the US Marine Corps, where he faced a court-martial for going AWOL and not following an officer's orders. So while Randy Orton's wrestling character might seem like a bad guy with all these intense antics, it's all part of the show. His real-life story, though, has had its own twists and turns, just like for any of us. But his personal life is not free from controversies either. His divorce from his first wife, Samantha Speno, in 2013 was widely covered in the media. The separation was messy, with accusations of Randy being unfaithful and a tough custody battle over their daughter, which drew a lot of negative attention. Besides his divorce, Randy is known for being quite outspoken on social media. He often gets into lively discussions and sometimes fiery arguments with fans and critics. His straightforwardness has sometimes sparked controversy, leading to accusations of him being insensitive or rude. There have also been rumors and unproven claims about domestic abuse in Randy's past relationships. These allegations, although not confirmed, have contributed to a somewhat negative image of him. All these personal issues have painted a complex picture of Randy Orton, making him as well known for his controversies outside the ring as his achievements within it. This mix of professional success and personal challenges keeps him in the public eye, attracting both admiration and criticism. But it would be unfair to just talk about his controversies, right? Here's a deep dive into his legendary career. Randy went to Hazelwood Central High School where he wrestled, and after graduating in 1998, he joined the United States Marine Corps. He didn't stay long, receiving a bad conduct discharge in 1999 for going AWOL twice and disobeying a direct order. He spent 38 days in the brig and later covered up a Marine tattoo on his arm after his discharge. Randy's professional wrestling career kicked off in 2000 in St. Louis, Missouri, with the MMUA SIXW, a group connected to the historical St. Louis Wrestling Club. He was trained there and by his father. He moved to Ohio Valley Wrestling OVW in 2000 after signing with the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now WWE, to continue training. He wrestled stars like Rico Constantino and the prototype John Cena, and even won the OVW Hardcore Championship twice. Randy made his WWF main roster debut on SmackDown in 2002, quickly becoming a prominent face. He joined the group Evolution, which dominated the scene from 2003 to 2004, alongside Triple H, Ric Flair, and Batista. During this time, Randy developed his legend killer persona, disrespecting and defeating established wrestling icons. This led him to claim numerous titles, including the Intercontinental Championship. In 2004, Randy became the youngest world heavyweight champion in WWE history. However, his victory caused a rift within Evolution, leading to his ousting from the group. He then feuded with his former allies, especially Triple H. Randy's storyline continued to evolve, with feuds against The Undertaker and becoming a multi-time WWE champion. Randy's wrestling style and the use of his finishing move, the RKO, have made him a standout WWE star. Despite various feuds and alliances, Randy Orton remains a significant and influential figure in professional wrestling. Now, talking of his style of play, Randy Orton's signature move, the RKO, is a clever play on his initials. It's a stunning jump and cut move that he's made famous. He also had another move, the punt kick, where he'd run up and kick his opponent in the head, usually knocking them out of the ring for a while. This was so realistic that WWE actually banned it in 2012 because they were worried people might try to copy it and get hurt. But in 2020, it made a comeback during a big match with Edge. Orton started in WWE as the Legend Killer, a young guy who didn't respect the older legends, but often beat them in matches. Around 2007, his character shifted to a more unpredictable and sneaky guy, earning him nicknames like the Viper and the Apex Predator. Orton once said he loves playing the bad guy because it feels more natural, and he's good at making people dislike him even more in just 5 minutes. Apart from wrestling, Orton has been on several TV shows to promote wrestling events. He was even the face of the WWE 12 video game. In 2014, he became a bit of an internet sensation when people started making videos where they'd edit him doing the RKO in funny fail videos. Randy's life shows us the complex side of being famous. It's not always easy dealing with the pressures of the public eye and balancing personal issues. Despite the ups and downs, Randy has shown a lot of resilience and continues to be a key player in wrestling. Looking at Randy Orton's career, we see the challenges and triumphs of a wrestling star. Whether you love him or have mixed feelings because of the controversies, it's clear that he's made a big impact on the sport. If you're into wrestling and want to dive deeper into the lives of wrestling stars like Randy Orton, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Drop a comment below to share your thoughts on Randy Orton's career and stay tuned for more wrestling content. Keep watching and wrestling with the big topics with us.
We all know Stone Cold for his hell-raising antics in the ring, but did you know he was just as wild outside of it? This dude's domestic abuse case just got exposed, and it's way more intense than anything we saw on WWE. Let's see what the chaos is all about. Stone Cold Steve Austin, born Stephen James Anderson on December 18, 1964, is a retired American pro wrestler, actor, and media personality. Austin was born in Austin, Texas, but after his parents split when he was just a year old, he grew up mostly in Edna, Texas. His mom remarried Ken Williams in 1968. After high school in Edna, Austin got a football scholarship to Wharton County Junior College and then to the University of North Texas. He started as a linebacker but switched to defensive end after a knee injury. But then came a twist in his career. Austin fell in love with wrestling early on, watching Houston wrestling shows run by Paul Boesch. By college, he lived near the Dallas Sportatorium, home to world-class championship wrestling. Deciding to pursue his passion, Austin joined Gentleman Chris Adams Wrestling School at the Sportatorium. His first seminar cost $45. Adams taught him the moves but didn't get into the business side of wrestling. Austin later called Adams a con man for not teaching him everything he needed to know. Austin's first match was in 1989 for WCCW against Frogman LeBlanc, earning him $40. He looked up to wrestlers like the Von Erich family, Dusty Rhodes, and Ric Flair early in his career. Austin kicked off his wrestling gig with World Championship Wrestling, WCWW, back in May 1991, picking up the nickname Stunning Steve Austin. He didn't really click with that persona, though. He started off with a valet named Vivacious Veronica, but soon switched to teaming up with Jeannie Adams, who was called Lady Blossom. Not too long after he started, Austin snagged his first WCW World Television Championship by beating Bobby Eaton in June 1991. He also joined a group called the Dangerous Alliance. In 1992, he dropped and then quickly reclaimed his championship from Barry Windham. He had a pretty solid run until he lost to Ricky Steamboat that September, right when the Dangerous Alliance was splitting up. Austin also had a stint in Japan in 1992, wrestling a few matches there because WCW had a deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He participated in the G1 Climax tournament, winning his first match but losing in the second round. He and Arn Anderson teamed up for some tag team matches during this time too. Back in the U.S. in September 1992, Austin teamed up with Brian Pillman to form the Hollywood Blondes. Initially, Austin wasn't too thrilled about being in a tag team, but they ended up clicking and even won the WCW and NWA World Tag Team Championships in March 1993. They held onto those titles for about 5 months. When Pillman was out injured, Austin joined Colonel Robert Parker's stud stable. Once Pillman was back, Austin turned on him and beat him in a match at Clash of the Champions in November 1993. Austin kept pushing in singles competitions too, winning the WCW United States Championship at Starrcade in December 1993. He had a bit of a roller coaster with that title, losing it and winning it back under some pretty wild circumstances, including one time when he was handed the title because his opponent was injured and then lost it super quick to Jim Duggan. Not just this, Austin tried a few more times to grab the United States Championship and had various rivalries, but things were tense with WCW management, especially with Eric Bischoff. After dealing with some injuries and feeling undervalued, Austin decided to leave WCW in 1995. He briefly went back to wrestle in Japan before moving to Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW, where he began shaping his iconic Stone Cold persona, which totally changed the game for him in wrestling. But it is not just his achievements that made him the talk of the town. Rather, his criminal charges really exposed the true person he is. Austin's romantic life has been nothing short of a roller coaster, marked by abrupt changes and controversies. He first married his high school sweetheart, Catherine Burris, in 1990, but this marriage ended quickly. He fell for Jeannie Clark, an English wrestling manager he worked with, leading to the end of his marriage with Burris in 1992. Austin and Clark got married that same year. But their relationship also faced problems and ended in divorce in 1999. During this relationship, Austin also became a stepfather to Clark's daughter from another relationship. adding more complexity to his family life. But the drama doesn't stop there. Austin's third marriage to wrestling manager Deborah Marshall in 2000 turned particularly nasty. It was filled with claims of domestic abuse that became public when Marshall called the police in 2002 to report Austin for hitting her. This incident led to an arrest and charges against Austin, which he responded to by pleading no contest, resulting in probation and community service. Marshall later claimed that WWE knew about the abuse but hid it to protect its profits, an accusation that suggested a deep culture of secrecy within the organization. Austin, for his part, denied the claims, saying they were not related to alcohol and expressed regret over the relationship ending. Adding to his controversial personal life, Austin faced more accusations of domestic violence in 2004 from another girlfriend, Tess Broussard. Though no legal action followed, the claim added another layer to his troubled relationships. In what might have been seen as an attempt to start fresh, Austin legally changed his name to Steve Austin in 2007, fully taking on his wrestling name, which itself had been a symbol of boldness and defiance. Austin's personal story took a seemingly stable turn with his fourth marriage to Kristen Ferris in 2009. Yet the shadows of his past relationships and the scandals they brought up, especially regarding domestic violence, continue to cast a long shadow over his public image, blurring the line between his wrestling character and his actions in real life. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel for more such documentaries. Now coming to his style of play. In the beginning, Austin was all about technical wrestling. But a mishap in 1997, where Owen Hart accidentally hurt Austin's neck, forced him to switch his style to more of a brawler. Austin's signature move, the Stone Cold Stunner, became famous worldwide. Michael Hayes was the one who introduced this move to Austin. After retiring, Austin was cool with Kevin Owens using the Stunner as his finishing move too, although they both avoid comparing their styles too much. Back when Austin was called the Ringmaster, he used the $1 Million Dream because it was Ted DiBiase's special move. In his WCW days, Austin had a couple of other finishers, the Stun Gun and the Hollywood and Vine. Austin was easily recognized by his bald head, goatee, and simple black ring gear. His strong personality really won fans over. Known on screen as the tough anti-authority Stone Cold, he famously defied WWE Chairman Vince McMahon and wasn't shy about flipping the bird as a taunt. Jim Ross, a commentator and Austin's friend, nicknamed him the Texas Rattlesnake because he was so unpredictable. Austin himself later coined the Bionic Redneck due to his many injuries. On his podcasts, Austin often talks about Bret Hart, saying Hart significantly influenced his early career and helped him perfect his in-ring style. Austin even inducted Hart into the WWE Hall of Fame. Their WrestleMania 13 match is celebrated as one of the best ever, topping several lists, including IGN's greatest WrestleMania matches. One of Austin's matches against Undertaker on June 28, 1999, hit a 9.5 rating, making it the highest-rated Raw segment ever. In 2001, Austin started using "what" as a catchphrase during promos, which fans picked up and still use to interrupt wrestlers. Austin has mixed feelings about creating it, so wrapping it all up, Stone Cold Steve Austin has had quite the journey, both in and out of the wrestling ring. From his early days falling in love with wrestling to becoming a legendary figure known for his bold, straightforward style, Austin's career is a story full of fame, big twists, and personal challenges. Yet it's not all been championship belts and crowd cheers. His life has also been marked by serious personal issues, including troubling accusations of domestic abuse. These allegations show a stark contrast to the tough, rebellious persona we see on TV, revealing a more troubled side to the wrestling superstar. As fans, it's complicated trying to balance the electrifying performer with the private individual facing serious charges. Austin's story is a strong reminder of the big difference between our public heroes and their private realities. So what do you think about him? Let us know in the comment section below.